All right, the race I really want to talk about here. Oh boy, man. This race was freaking awesome, man. The 24 hours of Le Mans this year, the 90-second running of it. If you guys watched last week, we did a big preview of this race with all the things to look out for, all the surviving, the reliability, the different changing track conditions if we had weather involved, which we did this year, the nighttime hours, which seemed to be pretty grueling. The rain hit late in this race, which took a lot of people out of the race. The reliability started to kick in.
Hey everybody, this is Thomas from the Dega Boys channel reminding you to hit the like button if you're enjoying what you're watching. If you want to see more great content like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon as well to be notified of any future videos coming out. Thanks for watching, now back to the video.
But yeah, let's just get into the pole sitters in each class. So the number 6 Porsche, which was my pick last week to win this race, they qualified on pole. And I really thought this was going to be a Porsche weekend. I really did, man. I really did. And I'll talk about that more as this race progresses. But they literally looked like they were going to be unstoppable coming into this race. And they did exactly what they needed to do, qualified on pole. The number 70 McLaren in GT3 ended up qualifying pole, which I thought was a surprise pole winner. I didn't expect McLaren to really have the pace in this race to even contend for a pole, and they did it. And then the number 14 TS4, another shocker pole there at LMP2. I didn't expect that at all. They ended up putting that thing on pole. All right, early stage of this race, it was the two main Ferraris versus the number 6 Porsche up at the front of the field battling for the first hour or so. We survived the first couple laps, not a whole lot of carnage or anything there. Not a lot of reliability issues, which was nice. But then the rain came in. And we saw strategy absolutely change. The number 83 AF Corsa, which is not the works team, not the manufacturer support team, they're the B team there for Ferrari, the customer purchase car. They end up taking the lead through the rain strategy. They didn't change tires. They didn't put rain tires on. They stayed on the slicks. Everybody else decided, let's play it safe. It's so early in this race. We don't need to risk it by going on slicks. Let's just put the wets on. Let's run this stint. And they did that, but the of course stayed on the slicks, and they continue to stay on the slicks even in the rain. And what this allowed for was them to build a massive gap, and they held this gap for 12 hours, something to that effect. I mean, they were absolutely relentless. I mean, it was unbelievable the pace that they had in this race. And then you saw that the other two Ferraris, the main works teams, the manufacturer teams, they were in contention. You saw Toyota start to kind of cycle to the front with the number 7 and the 8. Then you saw Porsche with the number 6 cycle to the front, and they were all kind of battling a couple seconds apart. Second through about 6 was really good battle, different strategies being played out. But it really looked like they, of course, outsmarted everybody, man. The customer purchase team, it looked like they were going to win this race, and they were putting on an absolute display. We did have an early full course yellow in this race. I believe it was the number 20 BMW. Ended up eating the tire wall there in turn 38. I mean, what a massive wreck that was. That was one of our first major incidents of the race. I think this was hour 1.5, hour 2, something like that. Pretty crazy. And then we got into the nighttime hours, and this is where the race kind of changed in certain areas. The number 83 AF Corsa, your leader, was lapping the number 15 BMW, ends up making contact, sends the 15 BMW into the arm carol barrier, can open the wall. We went under safety car for like an hour and a half. Absolutely crazy, just pacing around during the nighttime hours. The rain's coming in. You see some teams coming down pit road, getting their bronze drivers in so they can get some of the hours for their bronze drivers in during the full course yellow, which was a smart move. Maybe lost a little bit of track position doing it, but I believe it was a very smart move to try and get some of those hours out for your bronze drivers there. Some teams didn't do that. They left their gold and platinum drivers in, and that kind of determined a lot of the factors towards the end of the race, I believe. But with that contact, though, with the number 83 AF Corsa, with the BMW, they end up penalizing them, I think it was a 30-second stop and hold penalty in the pit lane, which at that point really kind of just ended their race. Like, they had this massive gap. They get it all closed back in with the full course yellow on top of the penalty. That was devastating. I was really hoping to see an upset winner, and that would have been a massive upset win, especially with how quick the Ferraris were in this race. During the nighttime hours as well, number 46 BMW with Hartley behind the wheel, That was the Valentino Rossi car. That was my dark horse, my pick that I wanted to see do good. They were running good. I think they were P2 at the time. They ended up going off the track. He made a mistake. He missed the chicane or one of the corners earlier, like maybe 10 seconds prior to that. Went off the runoff area, got into the water, and when he put the power back down, it just snapped out, lost it, went right into the wall, ended their race. That was super unfortunate. I know we had a couple other cars. One of the Ferraris in GT3 had issues, and I think it was like it was probably 2 laps, which is about 10 or about 6, 7, 8 minutes of them just using the starter motor to get going. And the best part was watching the track official standing there, watching him try to get that thing to roll. And he's just hitting the starter motor, it's rolling about 5 feet, and then it would just stop. And then it was about another 10, 15 seconds later, and he hit it again. Boom, he rolled another 10, 15 feet. And he was just trying to get back to pit road. I think he was like 2 kilometers out, maybe 1.5 kilometers out for pit lane. That was just comical. The camera just couldn't take their eyes off of that little situation, which was absolutely comical at the moment. The number four Penske Porsche ended up getting into the wall. I believe it was, I want to say it was it Matthew? No, it was Felipe Nasr was behind the wheel at the time. Going into Indianapolis, still a little damp there in the early mornings of the race. I think it was about 5, 6 hours to go, maybe 4 or 5. Yeah, about 4 to 6 hours to go, something in that range. They ended up getting into the wet, drove right off the track, right into the wall, tire barrier there in Indianapolis. We also saw the same thing with the number 311 Action Express with Pipo Derani behind the wheel, which really devastated me because they were going to probably get a top 10 finish out of this. I mean, with the pace that they had, I was impressed. But of course, had to be Pipo Derani, man. The one hope that I thought they had in this race. I thought it'd be Jack Aiken, but it was Pipo. Dang it. Yeah, they ended up doing the same thing as the number 4 Porsche. Same spot, everything. Tire wall. Unfortunate. And then we saw the number 27 Ardent Racing GT3 do the same thing. Right there, man. Lost control coming into Indianapolis and hits the tire barrier. Ends up barrel rolling, landing on its lid. It slides down, end up pulling that thing out. I mean, it was just that Indianapolis, man, that tire barrier just needs some help after this race, man. It got absolutely demolished in the early hours of Saturday morning, I guess. Saturday night for me, Sunday morning in Le Mans. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And then the number 83A, of course, I think they're running P4, P5 at the time. They're still had a long climb to get back and recover from that penalty, but they end up having some issues. They end up pulling it behind the wall, DNF for them, which really kind of ended a Cinderella run for me. I thought that they just impressed the hell out of me in this race. I mean, yeah, Kubica behind the wheel of that car as well, and he put on absolutely insane stints. And from here on, it kind of turned into Ferrari versus Toyota. And it was the 50 Porsche or Ferrari really just master strategy. Great run by those drivers. I mean, unbelievable the pace that they had. Last year they didn't get the job done. It was the 51. It was the sister car that got the job done, and the 50 really showed up this year. We had the number 8 Toyota, the number 51 Ferrari, the 7 Toyota, and I believe we also had big shout out to Alex Palou as well, the number 2 Cadillac. He had a really good stint as well there at the end. I think it was about 4 hours ago they threw him in the car. First ever time at Le Mans, and he didn't race like a rookie. That's for sure. Proved that he's a 2-time IndyCar champion. Did a fantastic job there as well. I was thinking, man, if strategy plays out right, or maybe we get a full course yellow, they were off strategy a little bit. Maybe we could see Palou still a win, Cadillac still a win. I thought that would have been super cool. It just never worked out that way. That was super unfortunate. And yeah, the number 50 Ferrari goes on to win. We had Fuoco, Molina, and Nielsen. Great job by all 3 of those drivers. A big shout out to Nielsen. I think he was the MVP of the race. He was the one that did the early stints in the rain, really kept pace with the AF Corsa, even with the off strategy that they had. They still were the head car there through his stints. And then Fuoco did a great job during the nighttime. So did Molina. He had a couple stints during the nighttime as well. And then Nielsen gets back in the car to end the race and did fantastic with the weather conditions changing and evolving throughout the race, especially late with the last like 3-4 hours with the transition from dark to day and then into the daytime. It was he did a fantastic job to maintain that gap, and they got the job done. I think they had 2% energy load at the end of when they crossed the checkers, so they cut it extremely tight on strategy. masterful job there by Ferrari. They got the job done this year at Le Mans. And then in the LMP2 class, this was Tom's pick coming in. The number 22 United with Jarvis, Garg, and Siegel. They end up winning LMP2, which, to be fair, the LMP2 class shocked me. Like, me and Tom came on there the podcast last week, and we talked up the LMP2 was going to steal the show, how fantastic of a class they were, and how talent star-studded the lineups were. Some of the great talent and all the different cars that we had through LMP2, and they were an absolute joke this race. I mean, it was crazy. It was every time you look up, there'd be another LMP2 sliding through the gravel trap into a tire barrier, running over a GT3 car. I mean, it was just an absolute race of survival. And the number 22 United, give it up to them. They survived or out-survived everybody better than anybody else could survive themselves. I mean, it was crazy what we saw with LMP2. I mean, we had LMP2s stuffed into tire barriers, going around. I mean, gravel traps. It was a comedy show. I mean, one point, one of the LMP2s ran into a GT3, sent him into the gravel trap, and they have a grade-all with basically a big chain. They just wrap around the top of the car and they lift it off the track. Well, after the LMP2 made contact with the GT3, the officials there with the grade-all picked up the GT3 car, put it on the track, and then they just let the LMP2 sit there for a good couple extra minutes just to sit and reflect his absolute failure of a drive there. Which I thought was hilarious. Like, he's just sitting there. They're just not even going to... They're just like no hustle at all by the track marshals to get the LMP2 out of the gravel. I thought that was one of the funniest moments of the entire race. And then GT3, my pick last week, was the number 91 Manthey Porsche. They end up getting the job done. With Shaheen, Schuring, and Lights, they end up getting the win in GT3, which was absolutely freaking crazy racing there as well. Lots of lead changes. Iron Dames did really well through a lot of the early parts. They had a penalty at one point, sent him back, recovered from that. And then again, there was a lot of car failures on a lot of the GT3s as well. I mentioned with the number 46 with Hartley, he's going to get bonehead move of the week there, for me at least. So was Pipo Derani. A lot of these guys that just made so many really out of character bad mistakes that really put them behind the 8 ball there, especially the 46 BMW. I really thought that they had a chance to win this race. And can you imagine the entire Italian country would have lost their freaking mind. The couple million MotoGP fans that were watching this race as well. I mean, it would have been a cool moment to see Valentino Rossi win. He didn't get a chance. I mean, he did good in his few stints that he ran, but when they put that, in the nighttime hours in the rain, I mean, it fell apart. It was over. The Ferraris, the McLarens had issues. I mean, it was just all over the place. Number 92 Manthey, the team car to the 91, ended up DNFing late in this race as well, and it looked like they were going to be a good contender for it. And it was just a survival race again out of GT3. That's what we said, though. That's what we said last week. If you're going to win 24-hour Le Mans, you got to have the pace for one. You got to survive, and you got to master strategies. And we saw all of your winners were able to either survive, master strategies, or have the pace. And that's what it took to win Le Mans. That's how your 3 winners were decided there this week. And what a fantastic race. I mean, it was so much fun to watch. I enjoyed every bit of it, every minute of it. I mean, it was just thrilling. There was not really any dull moments. We had those couple hour safety cars, full course yellows that kind of put a hamper on things. But safety's priority, and when you can't open the wall, you gotta fix it. You gotta fix it, and that's what they did. Devastating week, I think, for McLaren and GT3. They really, with the qualifying on pole, I was surprised. I was like, maybe they're gonna shock the world here and this year and do something good. They just never materialized. Had a lot of issues. BMW. I mean, from the beginning of the race, it just fell apart when they stuffed the 20 in the wall. 15 gets stuffed in the wall. Mechanical issues late on both cars. I mean, it was just BMW in hypercar was just an embarrassment. Azota Frashini. I'm proud that they're in there, but oh man, they were a league out. They were a fish out of water. They were in a different league, man. They were just so far behind. I mean, they were at one point they were 2-3 laps down, and with no mechanical issues. Alpine, they had great pace early in this race. The first 4 hours, I was like, holy cow, Alpine might actually contend for this win. And then it just mechanical issues put them out of the race. It was over for them as well. Porsche ran pretty good, mainly the number 6. The 5 was off strategy there a little bit. They ran pretty well. The 4 was just out of contention the whole day. Ferrari, it was basically Ferrari, Toyota were the most consistent teams the entire race, which didn't really shock me, but it kind of shocked me because I thought Porsche was going to be the dominant team. It just never really came to fruition there. But big shout out again to the number 83 AF Corsa, the customer purchase team, man. What a drive they had this weekend, and I felt bad when they got that penalty. It was deserved, but I was really felt bad, and then to have the mechanical failure in the final 4 hours of the race just really stinks, man. They could have definitely climbed into a top five position, and shoot, they could have been in a podium. I mean, who knows what could happen late in that race? I mean, it was just they had great pace. I was impressed. But fantastic race at the 24-hour Le Mans this year. Super excited for this weekend, 6 hours at Glen. A lot of people that were at Le Mans are going to be at IMSA for the Watkins Glen race this weekend. So I'm super excited to see how that plays out. You'll have GTPs, LMP2s, GTD Pros, and GTDs all this weekend for the 6 hours at the Glen.